Alright, hey guys, Paxer, welcome back to another Pokemon Pocket video. In this video, we'll be going over the best decks to use in ranked, going over decks that were very prominent in tournaments from the past week, giving my personal takes and on why you should invest in those decks. If you're new to my channel, really do consider if you like and subscribe. It really does help me out, especially as a small-time content creator. And without further ado, let's get right into the video. Alright, so if this is your first video on my channel, how this video usually goes, I'm going to be looking at a couple of tournaments, looking at a couple of top performing decks from each, and then at the end of the video, I'll be using one of them in ranked to see a performance because the ranked season has finally begun. Took quite a while, but it is finally back. So the first tournament we will be going over is the Fantastical Frenzy, player count of 740. The link to the website that we'll be using will also be in the description below. But yeah, this is a tournament looking at the metagame, looking at the most popular decks that were used. Hydreigon, Mega Absol, also Mega Altaria, Gourgeist, that's the name. So of course, Hydreigon, Mega Absol, one of the strongest cards that came out in Series B. So yeah, 109 players use this, a 51.27% win rate. Okay. And then looking at this, Mega Altaria, Gourgeist, I feel like this is a new pairing as well. Looking at the other ones, just very briefly, got Mega Altaria Chingling, makes sense. Suicune Greninja, yeah, fallen down to 4th place, but still a very substantial win rate. 50 players, 47%. Before we get into the standings, I just want to quickly look at this right here. So Mega Altaria Gourgeist, I really don't know how to say the name, but interesting. Okay, so this deck is very nice. So Gourgeist is nice because it is essentially an Oricorio counter. So stage 1, yeah, but it requires only 1 energy. You do 70 and after attacking, you discard a card from your hand. If you can't, this attack does nothing. So an amazing way to deal with a Nightmare Bird. The main issue is that Oricorio, most decks I feel like do run Giant Cape, which makes it so, of course, Gourgeist will be 2-hit KOing. Not too bad. We also have Giratina, also a Peculiar Plaza. This card essentially makes basically all the Psychic cards in this deck. This stadium gives them a free retreat. Meloetta is amazing, very similar to Suicune Ex or like the legendary dog trio in general, in my opinion. But instead of drawing cards at the end of your turn, Meloetta draws cards during the beginning of your turn, and Pokemon specifically. So of course, at the beginning of your turn, if this Pokemon is in the active spot, put a random Psychic Pokemon from your deck into your hand. So this helps a lot with consistency. Given that, of course, Mega Altaria EX is a stage 1, you get this card out much faster. Also, this deck is running Training Area. So Training Area makes it so that your stage 1s do plus 10 damage. Again, looking at Gourgeist, doing 80. So if your opponent does Giant Cape, they will survive with 10 HP. But nevertheless, very nice, especially paired with Mega Altaria, because of course, Mega Altaria max damage will be 140, able to one-shot cards such as Suicune Ex without Giant Cape. So that's pretty nice. And then we have the usual supporters right here. Win Condition Cyrus, Sabrina, Professor's Research, Pokeball, yeah, Copycat. You can see a lot of success using this deck. Part of me does prefer Chingling, however. There is Chingling right here. I kind of like this because of the disruption. So just looking at a Chingling Mega Altaria deck. So just comparing both decks side by side. Let me get this correctly. Okay, there we go. Yeah, so very similar. This deck is running Tapu Lele, which is amazing just to do chip damage to your bench. This attack does 20 damage to one of your opponent's Pokemon for each energy attached to that Pokemon. You can get a lot of value targeting your opponent's active or even Pokemon in their bench. And of course, 2 copies of Cyrus, so yeah, kind of want to play with that. Also Giratina, same thing, targeting bench Pokemon, any actives. Yes, the reason why I prefer this is because of Chingling. Chingling is amazing because, of course, if you guys don't know, I feel like everybody knows, after attacking, your opponent can't play item cards. And the most popular item card, definitely depending on the deck you're using, is Rare Candy, which is amazing since it disrupts the most popular deck right here, Hydreigon Mega Absol, because pulling up a lot of tabs. But briefly looking at this, I'll talk a little bit more about this deck later on. Of course, leading with Hydreigon, you want to run at least 2 Rare Candies. 2 Rare Candies or even like 1 copy of the Middle Evolution. I keep forgetting the name of the Middle Evolution of Dino, but yeah, you can have 1 copy of that just to kind of like counteract Chingling. But yes, nevertheless, I do like the disruption. You can, aside from Rare Candy, Chingling will also make it so that your opponent can't use Pokeball, allowing them to not use Pokeball that 1 turn. And then that 1 turn could very much determine if you're going to win or lose. When it comes to this game, 1 turn, like this wasting a turn, could be pivotal, especially with how fast-paced this game is at this point. So yeah, and definitely for this deck, you definitely want to outspeed your opponent, getting a Mega Altaria out as fast as possible, easily feeding 2 energy and just attacking. So yeah, it really is up to you, but I feel like when it comes to Oricorio counters. This one's probably better at countering Oricorio because of Gourgeist. However, this deck I feel like is better all around. But yes, getting into the standings, just want to talk about that somewhat briefly. Here we go. Looking at this, we have a few new contenders, somewhat kind of. Mega Steelix EX is here, Indeede Ex. Came out both in Series B, but still a little bit of a new face in tournaments. Not really seeing too much play in tournaments, especially getting up in the standings. Like this person got into 3rd place, so yeah, looking at this, we have the usual contenders, essentially. So Suicune Greninja standing on top, of course, as always. This card, I'm just going to go over it. So by Chana_Re, we got this, yeah. Gonna briefly go over it because I've talked about this in every video. And I feel like if you guys are sick of that, I'm sorry, but if you're a new player and you just clicked on this to see what's meta, what's good to invest in, this deck has been so good. Ever since Suicune EX came out, this deck has been kind of like the go-to, dominating, and just continues to get better as time goes on, especially with the addition of Indeede Ex as well as Greninja Ex. So yeah, going over this very briefly, yeah, ideally you want to lead with Suicune. Greninja is amazing because of Cyrus, because looking at Greninja, Water Shuriken, you may do 20 damage to one of your opponent's bench Pokemon. That can be either active or bench. So because of that, you could use Water Shuriken, target one of your opponent's bench Pokemon, Cyrus, and then just attack with either Suicune EX, Greninja EX, or even Non-EX Greninja, because Non-EX Greninja paired with the ability does 80, which is not too bad. Also, again, could counteract Oricorio. So yeah, overall, I feel like this is a good deck to invest in. This deck is somewhat different than previous variants, because most variants run 2 copies of Non-EX Greninja and then 1 copy of Greninja EX, because looking at Greninja EX, pretty good card. I mean, does solid 100, which is nice because when it comes to, of course, Suicune EX, damage does vary, can do a max of 140. That's paired with Non-EX Greninja's Water Shuriken. However, looking at Greninja EX, does a flat damage of 100 plus 20, so 120 paired with, of course, the Non-EX. So yeah, Suicune EX has more potential. However, Greninja EX is more consistent, especially if your opponent doesn't have as many Pokemon out on the field. So yeah, and then looking at the matches, most likely a sweep. Lost twice, okay, against Mega Altaria Chingling, which does make sense because, as I mentioned earlier, Chingling is amazing at disrupting rare candy usage. So looking at this, running 2 copies of rare candies, and you have essentially 3 stage 2s in the deck. So yeah, and also 2 Pokeballs, yeah, of course. I feel like that's standard, but again, that could definitely disrupt you, especially in the early game. And then looking at this, another meta prominent deck, Hydreigon Mega Absol, which we will talk about later on, but it does kind of make sense why this deck lost, because that deck is very fast-paced. Hydreigon, you can, going first, you can start attacking with Hydreigon your second turn. That's insane. Like, you can just get insane disruption against your opponent. And of course, Mega Absol EX, potentially removing Cyrus from play. That's insane, because Cyrus is like one of the most popular win conditions in the game. I've won a lot of battles because of Cyrus, and inversely, I've lost a lot of battles because of the 28-year-old depressed man, or 27, I forgot the specific age, but yes, nevertheless, really does make sense why Greninja Suicune is on top. And as a new player, this is a good investment, because Greninja, this non-EX version, he's used in a lot of decks. I've seen decks pairing him with Oricorio, with Mega Altaria EX, and even before Suicune EX, he was paired in a lot of decks. So given this guy is a very good investment. He'll most likely be just meta relevant years later. I wouldn't be surprised a year later. Suicune Greninja is just fully on this power crept, not that good anymore, but Greninja still gets some usage. I wouldn't be surprised if it's like that. Unless they add a very broken like stage 1 that does basically Greninja's job but far better, or even basic, that would be insane. Also, Indeede Ex is an amazing support, not attacking in this deck, but healing 20 damage each turn is nice. It's amazing. It can definitely help you out in the long run, because again, that 20 damage seems very minuscule, but at the same time could definitely determine if you're going to win or lose the game. Of course, Giant Caping Suicune is amazing. So yeah, that's Suicune Greninja. Next deck we'll be going over is Hydreigon Mega Absol. Yes, once again, as I mentioned before, you've seen this guy in tournaments in the past, and it just continues to evolve, continues to get better. There are different variations, however, this one prioritizes on doing chip damage. So yeah, for this deck, you ideally want to lead with either Absol, Non-EX Absol, right here. Has 1 attack, leap over. This attack does 30 damage to one of your opponent's bench. So this card is an amazing chip, especially if you want to do that and then Cyrus your next turn. Or lead with Hydreigon. This guy is a monster. Stage 2, if you have main protagonist plot armor, you can get this guy again, as I mentioned earlier, your second turn, going first. And he needs only 1 energy to start attacking. So yeah, it says 3, but essentially just 1 because of the ability. Once during your turn, you may take 2 Darkness energy from your energy zone and attach it to this Pokemon. If you do take 30 damage of recoil. Some variations of this deck do run Indeede Ex just to heal up most of that damage, but this deck is running Lucky Ice Pop. And it can definitely be your win condition as well, because the potential for this card is insane. I've had games where I've healed up to 120 damage. I've had games where I've healed 120 damage. My opponent is about to one-shot my active Pokemon. I'm about to lose, but then I Lucky Ice Pop. Just get insanely lucky, and just like that, I ended up winning the game. It's kind of insane. So yeah, if you guys don't know, this card right here, a new card from Fantastical Parade, heal 20 damage from your active Pokemon. If you healed any damage this way, flip a coin. If heads, put this Lucky Ice Pop into your hand instead of the discard pile. In other words, it goes back to your hand. You can do it again. You heal 20, flip a coin. If you get heads, it goes back to your hand. Just repeat until you get tails, essentially. And this card is nice because it is essentially a Power Crab version of Potion. Because looking at Potion, I'm just going to pull it up. Potion just heals 20 damage. Granted, one thing this card has over Lucky Ice Pop is that it heals 20 damage from one of your Pokemon. It can be any Pokemon, your active, your bench, whereas of course Lucky Ice Pop, you can only heal your active Pokemon. But again, when it comes to healing, it's insane. It's essentially just a Power Crab version. You just look at the stats. And granted, it is RNG dependent, but it's not too bad. I mean, yeah, RNG dependent, but keep in mind, this is an item and your first heal is guaranteed. So you would play a card, heal, and then you would coin flip. It's not like you would coin flip first, and then if you get tails, it doesn't do anything. That would make this card a lot worse. But yeah, the guaranteed healing is pretty nice. And then coming back to Hydreigon, yes, after attacking, you discard all energy. The main issue for this card is that like if you play this very fast pace in the early game, you can't really build your bench. Because of course, after attacking, all energy is gone. Next turn, you have to feed 1 energy, ability, same thing, and then it's rinse and repeat. But then again, looking at this deck, not many of your Pokemon require much energy. Like the most is 2 energy, of course, with Mega Absol. So yes, so ideally, again, going back to my original tangent, ideally you want to start the game out with Absol or Dino and then sub into Hydreigon. After your Pokemon get knocked out, sub in a second copy of Hydreigon. And then if you haven't won by then, sub in Mega Absol and just sweep. And of course, poison's here, so Poison Barb plus 9 Lego. If your opponent does attack you and get poisoned, they're taking 20 damage each turn. So your opponent's pretty much screwed. There's really nothing they could do. Also copycats just to help with card generations, Professor's research, and then looking at the matches. Ooh, interesting. Lost once against a mirror match, of course. Tied against Mega Altaria Chingling. Interesting. And of course, lost to Suicune Greninja, which ultimately comes down to RNG. I feel like it's just whoever has the better starting hand essentially will win. Because if you can just outspeed your opponent using this deck right here against Suicune Ex, then of course you're just going to win. Hydreigon can not one-shot Suicune Ex, but do a substantial amount of damage. And if they do attack you, I mean, Poison Barb right here, so you could potentially one-shot if they are already poisoned. But when it comes to a new player investing, I feel like you should invest in either this deck or Suicune Ex. This deck has gotten me to Master Ball a couple times already. And then, of course, Suicune Ex. A lot of players hate it, but I feel like when it comes to the meta, it's definitely not the most annoying deck to go up against. Again, it requires a bit of RNG because you want to get Greninja out as fast as possible. But once that card is out and you have an active Pokemon that's either Suicune Ex or Greninja Ex, and they're fully built, it's a nightmare. There's really no competing. And then as for this deck, somewhat similar. Once Hydreigon is out and you're active, your opponent is just... they have to work around it, essentially. Like, you get so much value with Hydreigon, and it says non-EX. Keep in mind, it's a non-EX, so your opponent only gets 1 point, knocking this Pokemon out, and you can just sub in another one. Those are the 2 decks. And then the last deck we'll be going over from this tournament, very briefly, this deck right here. Mega Steelix EX, Indeede EX. Not as good of an investment as, of course, the other 2 decks I mentioned, but still pretty interesting. This is kind of a notable deck because it did make it the top 3. So this deck, you do want to lead with both Onyxes. We have 2 copies of Onyx. This one requires 3 energy, does 50 damage. Second one, 3 energy as well, 30 damage. Flip a coin if heads. During your opponent's next turn, prevent all damage from and effects of attacks done to this Pokemon. So very nice, especially if you want to maximize your HP. The main issue is, of course, it is a coin flip mechanic. So yeah, lead with either Onyx and then eventually sub into Mega Steelix EX. Requires 4 energy, but looking at this supporter card right here, Brock, take a fighting energy from Energy Zone and attach it to Golem or Onyx. So Yes, so before you evolve into Mega Steelix, you do want to basically maximize Brock, eventually evolving into this behemoth. And yes, HP is 220 stage 1, of course, 120 damage after attacking. During your opponent's next turn, this Pokemon takes negative 20 damage from attacks and has no weaknesses. So if you're going up against a fire deck, you're not getting type advantage, so that's pretty nice. And you essentially want to lead with that. So this Mega Steelix EX is out, and just keep attacking, make sure it doesn't die, and that's pretty much it. That's pretty much the deck. It's very straightforward. We have Indeede Ex here, 2 copies, again, primarily supporting, Professor's Research, PC Lady, Lucky Ice Pop, Heavy Helmet, negates 20 damage done to both Onix and Mega Steelix EX. Again, it's not that good. Might as well pull up the metagame. How many people use this deck? So Mega Steelix, only 1. Okay, that 1 person made it the top 3, which is pretty nice. It kind of shows that you don't have to follow the meta to perform well. Granted, it's less likely, it's less consistent, because looking at this deck, there's a lot of issues with this. Like, for one thing, if you do get Indeede Ex your first turn and are forced to lead with that card, then it gets kind of awkward, especially with how fast-paced this meta is. Depending on your opponent's deck, you're most likely forced to basically sacrifice Indeede Ex and then eventually subbing into Mega Steelix EX. Because yeah, Mega Steelix EX requires 4 energy. And Brock is nice, but still requires a lot of RNG. So if you go second and you use 2 Brocks in those your first 2 turns, Mega Steelix EX can attack your second turn. That's very good. But given RNG, it'll most likely take you around like 3 or even 4 turns, even 5, until Mega Steelix EX can attack. Yeah, especially if you can't get Onix out on your bench. Like if for whatever reason you just can't get Onix out early game, that's going to mess you up because you want to get Onix out on the field as fast as possible. And let's say you're going second, you only have Indeede Ex in your active. That's already hurting you. Your next turn, you draw a card and you don't get Onix yet again. That's a huge setback, which is why I feel like, yes, this deck is nice, but personally, there are far better decks to invest in. You can definitely make it work, yeah. But again, don't be surprised if you do brick a lot. This guy went insane. Lost only twice. Okay. First loss was against Hydreigon Mega Absol. Second loss was against Suicune Greninja. You're seeing a theme here. It's like, yes, these 2 decks are just dominating. And yeah, that was a Fantastical Frenzy tournament. Next tournament we will be going over is the Umbreon 99's Tuesday Showdown number 2. Player count of 239. This tournament is actually comprised of 2 tournaments. So we have Show Me the Money and the Tuesday Showdown. Looking at the metagame, Hydreigon Mega Absol, Suicune Greninja. Yes, again, as a new player, I keep saying this, but if you're a new player, these 2 are solid investments. And then looking at the standings, we'll look at Show Me the Money first. What is this? What? Okay. Leafeon EX and Celebi Ex. Alright. Made by Chiha Rotzer. Wow. Okay. So this deck is actually very old. Celebi came out over a year ago. Used to be very good, but granted, I mean, very RNG dependent, especially with the coin flips, but you can do like 350 damage, depending on how things go. And then back in the day, games were far slower than today. So yes, for this deck, you ideally want to lead with Leafeon Ex, and then eventually sub into Celebi, and just pray that Celebi pops off. So Celebi right here, basic, HP 130, powerful bloom, requires 2 energy, flip a coin for each energy attached to this Pokemon. So attack does 50 damage for each heads. And looking at this Leafeon EX right here, ability, once during your turn, if this Pokemon is an active spot, you may take a grass energy from your energy zone and attach it to one of your grass Pokemon. So yeah, given this card, you can just keep on feeding Celebi. And looking at the last Pokemon we have, Superior. This card came out in Mythical Islands along with, of course, Celebi EX. Ability, Jungle Totem. Each grass energy attached to your grass Pokemon provides 2 energy. This effect doesn't stack. So in other words, looking at Celebi requires 2 energy. If you have Superior on the field and Celebi in your active, Celebi only needs 1 energy to attack. Yeah, so that 1 energy will count as 2. So you would use Powerful Bloom, flip 2 coins if you get both heads, doing 100. So you see the gimmick here. Celebi is like Goku. You got all of Goku's friends, Superior Leafeon EX, buffing Celebi, charging up that Spirit Bomb, essentially a Spirit Bomb, and potentially nuking your opponent. Granted, it does require RNG. If you feed this guy, like let's say like 8 energy, you could just get tails. You can get like 8 tails in a row, and that would be, I would just freaking take a break from this game. Yeah, it's like emotional damage right there. But Nevertheless, a very fun card. A very nice and fun card. Not really that meta relevant and not too reliable. Looking at other decks, of course, Suicune Greninja can definitely just easily disrupt Celebi Ex from just charging up his ultimate. And also getting Superior out might take a while. Leafeon Ex could get him your first turn, so that's pretty nice. But to help with that, we do have Quick Row Extract. This card is amazing. Treats this card as an evolution Pokemon, if you know what I mean. So let's say you have Snivy in your bench, you have Quick Row Extract, and you don't have either a Snivy or a Servine and okay, this deck's not running Rare Candy, but yeah, you don't have a Servine in your hand. Use Quick Row Extract and it evolves just like that. And yeah, very straightforward. And honestly, I might use this in rank. I'm kind of scared, but especially since this is my first rank game in this season. I don't know how it will go, but I want to try this out in rank. They'll be very interesting. So yeah, with that being said, stay tuned until the end. And then looking at the matches, won a lot against very top performing decks, even Suicune Greninja. So this could be the return of Celebi. Huge W. Really do like that Pokemon. Lost against Magnezone Oricorio and Indeede Stoutland, which does make sense with Magnezone Oricorio since, of course, looking at this deck, the only card that can do damage to Oricorio is Superior, but this card requires 2 energy to attack. And again, for this deck, the primary focus is to kind of build up Celebi, and Celebi can do like what, 1,000 damage, 5,000 damage, whatever number you want, and will do nothing against Oricorio, the Nightmare Bird. This guy. Not this guy. Different bird. The lightning one. That guy. Yeah. This guy is sends nightmares to your opponents. And also to me. I've woken up in like heavy sweats just thinking about Oricorio. Like I'd be just having the most pleasant dream, and then Oricorio just pops up like that face right there, and I just wake up, just jolt up, and I'm like, oh shit. And yeah, that was Leafeon Celebi. The last deck that we will be going over is Magnezone Oricorio. Got 5th place, made by Shika Maru. And look in this deck, yes, this deck is very nice. A non-EX deck. Now Oricorio is amazing, especially with the prominence of EXs. Magnezone is amazing as well, both Magnezones. So there's another one as well, keep in mind. Came out, let's see, I think it's this one? Not that one, it's this one. Yeah. So this guy does 110 damage. The main issue for this one is that after attacking, you do discard an energy. Whereas for the new Magnezone came out in Crimson Blaze, does 90 damage, same energy requirement. A little bit more HP, yeah. Does less damage, of course, but after attacking during your opponent's next turn, if the defending Pokemon tries to use an attack, your opponent flips a coin. If tails, that attack doesn't happen. So essentially confusion. I feel like this is basically confusion because your opponent can definitely just sub out of that active Pokemon into another one, attack, and you don't have to do the coin flip. So yeah, and looking at this deck, you ideally want to lead with Magnemite into Magneton, and then eventually in the Magnezone. Clemont right here, making sure that you can get your Magnetons out very fast. Once Magnezone dies, you can either sub in Oricorio or another Magnezone. And honestly, you can either do that or even just lead with Oricorio. Once the first one dies, sub in the second one. Once the second one dies, sub into Magnezone. You can very much do that. And depending on your opponent's deck, if they just have EXs, like let's say like you're going against like, for whatever reason, Mega Mawile, 19 Trainer Mega Mawile, your opponent can't do anything if you have 2 copies of Oricorio. No PC Lady though. I was about to say, the only thing they could really do is chip damage with either Poison Barb, or Rocky Helmet, which is why PC Lady is amazing since it does remove status conditions. But 2 Lucky Ice Pops, yeah. Copycat, Lucia, so still nevertheless a lot of supports. Only 1 Pokeball, keep in mind, because that's all you really need if you're running 2 copies of Lucia. And then looking at the matches, tied twice, lost once against Hydreigon Mega Absol, 1 against Leafeon Celebi. Let me just look at this. So given the timeline, yeah, this is the one I mentioned. Okay, yeah, makes sense. So yeah, overall a good investment, especially if you just hate EXs. If you hate losing to EXs and you want to just mess up your opponents, both mental and physically, kind of, they're gonna physically just go into shock. It'll be like a Yu-Gi-Oh duel where like your opponent just feels the damage, just really into the role playing, I guess. I don't know, but yeah, that's the weekly meta report. A lot of the usual contenders as well as new faces and old faces alike. But yeah, to end off the video, I'll be using this deck in ranked and we'll see how it performs. All right, here we are in ranked battle going first. Okay. Leading with Snivy. Not good. This is like the worst scenario, I feel like you ideally want to lead with Eevee. Just maximizing, of course, what's the name? Leafeon Ex's ability, but Snivy is very awkward. Alright, Pokeballed, so we can get Eevee. But the main issue is that we can't evolve immediately. Eevee has to be in the active to just instantly evolve, so we have to wait one more turn. I'm just gonna chill like this. Kind of risky because my opponent knows I have a Pokemon in my hand, but we can definitely work with this. So next turn we can just May, and then hopefully get Celebi and just kind of set up from there. But it gets very awkward because we're going up against a Mimikyu, which is not good because I could be doing like, what, 800 damage onto Mimikyu EX with Celebi, but that first attack won't matter because of the ability Disguise. So matchup-wise, this is probably the worst one. Okay, this is not good because my opponent will also get built as well, doing chip damage. Okay, yeah, so Leafeon, evolving into Leafeon EX. We are forced to retreat out of Snivy. May? Hopefully we can get a Celebi, please? No Celebi. Okay. This is not good. Okay. Let's do this, I guess? Okay. So we can get Superior out, potentially, if you do, especially if we do get Servine or Quick or Extract. But for now... Gosh. We might be forced to Copycat. This is not good. So... At this point, just feed Leafeon. We can at least proc next turn Mimikyu's shield, the disguise ability. So for now, just end our turn like this. Might be forced to Leaf Cape. I want to save the Leaf Cape for Celebi, especially since Giratina Ex in the bench is rather scary. Not looking good at all. Opponent places Peculiar Plaza, makes it essentially a free retreat for Mimikyu and Giratina. Leafeon might die next turn. Okay, yeah, we might as well do this. Sure. I don't want Leafeon to die this turn, or next turn, so let's do this. Feed. And just hope that we get something good. Again, next turn we are kind of forced to Copycat. Alright, procting, or removing the disguise. Nice. Taking a bit of damage, but not able to die. Okay, Giratina EX slowly getting built. Oh boy. Alright. We got this Leafeon. I totally forgot to mention this, but this is an amazing card, especially if you want to deal with Oricorio. Yeah, so the more energy this card's attached, the more damage it does. Very similar to Celebi, but more consistent. Gosh, we might be forced to... I'm just gonna not play the Leaf Cape. This might hinder me in the long run, but I really do want to say that Leaf Cape for Celebi because Giratina can one-shot. But even then, my opponent did Rocky Helmet, so it might not matter that much at all. Yeah, because look at this. This is nice. You love to see this. Alright, on the bright side, next turn, we could potentially get out Superior. The main issue is that, of course, we are screwed. There's really nothing we could do. Alright, Leafeon EX is dead, but Servine, take it away, one-shotting. We are doing 50. Exactly enough to one-shot Mimikyu. Amazing. And I really don't know where the heck... I should have evolved. Crap. But it doesn't matter because I'm about to lose. Can we get... Okay. Perfect. So on the bright side, we can evolve. The main issue is that Giratina will one-shot. Oh. Yes, this is how you don't want to play the deck, and I really had no choice in the matter how to play this. At this point, I could do this too. This is pretty cool. Might as well, so... Could play like this, why not? I'm still going to lose either way, but I could discard, summon to Leafeon, and because of Superior's ability, Leafeon only needs 2 energy to attack. So I can just do this. Usually I need 1 more energy, but because of the buff, Mimikyu EX is gone. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I've spent several turns, and then that's what I got. And I'm just gonna get just absolutely railed on by this Giratina. Look at that freaking Mankey, man. That guy is not happy because of my performance. He's like, what am I witnessing? This deck that should have stayed in Mythical Islands is coming up. A little bit of an update, but yeah, this can't compete. It was cool to see it in a tournament, but again, requires a lot of luck, and luck was definitely not on my side. For some reason, I just couldn't get Celebi Ex out. But yeah, that's a weekly meta report. Overall, invest in Hydreigon and Suicune Greninja. Yes. And yeah, it's a video. Hope you guys did enjoy. Again, please like and subscribe because it really does help me out, especially as a small-time content creator. With that being said, I'll see you guys on my next video. Peace.